Red Lobster did not collapse because customers discovered shrimp. That is the funny version of the story, and it is the version that spread because it is so easy to picture. A restaurant chain promises endless shrimp, customers keep ordering, and the deal eats the company alive. But the stronger story is more useful than the joke. Endless shrimp mattered because it made a stress system visible. It was not the whole disease, it was the x ray. That difference matters because a visible promotion gives the audience a simple object to blame, while the real failure usually sits in the less visible machinery around it. Endless shrimp is the moment the machinery becomes visible. Behind that plate were lease obligations, ownership pressure, weak traffic, and a physical restaurant footprint that needed more healthy visits than the chain could reliably produce. So, yes, the shrimp deal belongs in the title. It became the symbol. But if we stop there, we miss the corporate autopsy. The real question is not simply how much shrimp people ate, it is why one customer friendly promotion could become the public face of a bankruptcy story. To understand why that image landed so hard, start with how normal Red Lobster felt. This was not a mystery startup with a confusing product. It was a familiar casual dining chain with signs people recognized, buildings people drove past, and a menu promise that felt almost comforting. A brand like that can seem too ordinary to fail. That is exactly why the failure is interesting. Familiarity can hide risk for a long time. The same familiarity that brings customers back can make a brand feel healthier than it is because the warning signs are not obvious from the parking lot. A restaurant can still have a visible sign, a recognizable logo, and people walking past the entrance while the business underneath gets tighter. The outside says permanence. The inside has to deal with rent, labor, food cost, ownership decisions, and whether customers are coming back often enough. A chain can feel permanent right up until it has to prove that each location still works. In a corporate graveyard story, the dangerous moment is when the brand image keeps looking solid after the operating model has already started losing room to move. The public belief is clean. Red Lobster sold too much shrimp too cheaply and the chain paid for it. That version works because everyone understands a bad deal. You do not need a finance background to imagine a restaurant offering more food than it can profitably serve. You can see the plate, see the line of customers, and understand the tension immediately. But that simple belief is only useful if we treat it as the front door, not the whole house. The endless shrimp losses mattered. The promotion was not irrelevant. It pulled attention toward a real business problem. But the reason it became such a powerful symbol is that it compressed a complicated system into one repeatable image. Shrimp is concrete, leases are abstract, ownership structure is abstract, traffic decline is abstract. So the deal became the story people could tell. The job now is to separate the symbol from the system. That means asking a harder question. If the promotion had never existed, would the chain have been healthy or would another pressure point have exposed the same weakness? The counterfactual matters because it keeps the story honest. The shrimp explains the spotlight, it does not explain the whole stage. A restaurant promotion is supposed to do a simple job. Bring people in. That can be valuable if each visit helps the business. But every visit still has costs attached to it. Food has to be served, workers have to be scheduled, the dining room has to operate, the location still has to be paid for. If the deal creates attention without improving the underlying economics, it becomes a stress test. A stress test is not automatically the original cause of the stress. It is the moment when the hidden weakness has to perform in public. It shows where the business has no cushion. The issue is cushion. That is the endless shrimp problem in plain language. Customer excitement and company economics were not the same thing. A promotion can fill seats and still expose a margin problem. It can make the restaurant look busy while forcing the company to carry more pressure per visit. That is why the question is not whether customers liked the offer. Of course, the offer was easy to like. The question is whether Red Lobster could afford the kind of attention it created. If normal traffic had been strong enough, the same offer might have looked like a noisy marketing event instead of a warning signal. A healthy model can survive experiments, a strained model turns experiments into evidence. The next layer is the dining room itself. Restaurants are physical businesses. They sit in real locations with real doors, real dining rooms, and obligations that do not disappear just because demand gets uneven. They cannot shrink as quickly as a spreadsheet can. If a chain has locations, it has a footprint, and that footprint comes with obligations. The Chapter 11 story points directly at leases, ownership, and closings as context around the bankruptcy. That matters because a lease problem changes the meaning of a promotion. If traffic is weak, a company may reach for a deal to bring people back through the door, but the fixed cost remains. The building is still there. The physical footprint can become a trap. Every weak location still needs enough sales to justify being open. The rent pressure is still there. The staff and operating system still have to support the visit. So a discount can look like a rescue attempt while also proving how narrow the path has become. When traffic and costs no longer match, the public eventually sees the result as closures. That is why the lease lane is not background detail. It is the bridge between an abstract balance sheet problem and a locked front door. Ownership adds another layer, but it should not be turned into a cartoon villain story. Thai Union belongs in this story as ownership context because ownership shapes the amount of room a turnaround has. Owners influence capital decisions, strategic pressure, and what kinds of fixes are even available. In a stressed restaurant chain, those choices matter because the company is not deciding from a blank slate. That does not mean every bad outcome can be reduced to one owner or one boardroom choice. Pressure is the point, not accusation. The useful point is more precise. Red Lobster's shrimp story sits inside a wider pressure system. A company with lease obligations, traffic problems, and ownership constraints has less freedom than the public story suggests. By the time a promotion becomes the headline, many choices have already been narrowed. The promotion then gets judged as if it were the first domino, when it may be closer to the domino everyone finally noticed. That is why the endless shrimp image is powerful. It looks like a simple menu mistake, but it points toward a business that had too little room left for mistakes. That keeps the legal frame safer and the business lesson sharper. Traffic is the quiet failure mode because it does not always look dramatic at first. There is no single dramatic photo of insufficient habit, no easy image that proves people are choosing somewhere else. A restaurant can still open its doors, a sign can still glow, a server can still bring out food, but the model depends on enough people choosing the restaurant often enough to cover the physical system. A promotion visit is not the same as a healthy customer habit. A deal can pull someone in once or pull them in for the bargain without proving that the normal business has been repaired. The healthy version would be customers returning because the restaurant still fits their routine at normal prices. That is the trap. If the promotion becomes the reason people show up, then the company may be buying attention instead of rebuilding demand. And if the regular traffic is not strong enough, the deal stops looking like marketing and starts looking like desperation. That is the traffic trap. That is the moment endless shrimp changes from a joke into a warning light. The scary part is that a warning light can look like a crowd. A busy promotion day can still point to a weak-based business. This is why the symbol took over the story. A multi-causal business failure needs translation before people can repeat it. The bankruptcy frame had many moving parts, but the public remembered the part it could taste. Endless shrimp was simple. It had a plate, a promise, and a contradiction the audience could understand instantly. It had a built-in punchline. It let people explain a corporate collapse in one sentence. The deal did that translation. And to be fair, the symbol was not fake. That is why the video cannot dismiss it as just a meme or just bad public framing. The endless shrimp losses made deeper lease, ownership, and traffic problems visible, so the deal belongs in the story. The mistake is letting it stand alone. A symbol can be true enough to matter and still too small to explain everything. The promotion became the visible surface of a deeper machine. It was where customers could see pressure that usually stays hidden in contracts, traffic trends, and strategic decisions. Then the story moved from the plate to the windows. Once the symbol had everyone's attention, the consequence needed no complicated explanation. A closed location made the abstract system visible. The closing sign is where the business lesson becomes physical. A closed Red Lobster location is not just a sad image, it is the public surface of private constraints colliding. For viewers, it converts the whole case from theory into proof of consequence. The leases, traffic weakness, operating pressure, and promotion economics all become easier to understand when the door is shut and the sign tells customers the location is gone. That is why the closed location image belongs late in the story, not at the beginning. Early on, the brand still needs to feel familiar. Later, the closure pays off the promise. The cheerful deal that sounded like abundance ends with a much colder image, a restaurant footprint that could not keep supporting itself. That contrast is the emotional turn of the episode, abundance on the menu, scarcity in the model. Closures also answer the counterfactual. If the system had enough slack, the story would not end at the window. The point is not to mock the chain or the customers who like the deal. The point is to show how a familiar brand can become a decline image in public. The graveyard is not the joke, it is the proof that the joke was pointing at something deeper. The corporate graveyard pattern is bigger than Red Lobster. A company can confuse attention with repair. That confusion is especially dangerous for a familiar brand because recognition can feel like demand even when the habit is weakening. A promotion can create buzz, but buzz is not the same as a healthy model. More visits are not automatically better if the visits reveal bad economics. A deal can expose the model faster than it fixes it. A famous brand is not automatically safe if its leases, ownership, context, traffic, and operating costs are all pulling in different directions. That is the pattern this case makes visible. The public usually notices the symbol after the exits have already narrowed. By then, management is not choosing among perfect options. It is choosing among constrained options. By the time people are joking about endless shrimp eating the chain, the deeper issue is that the chain no longer controls enough of the structure underneath the deal. The final lesson is not that discounts are dangerous. The final lesson is that a discount can reveal what the company no longer controls. That is the useful warning for any turnaround story. Do not mistake a louder signal for a solved system. So did endless shrimp eat Red Lobster? In the narrow meme version, that answer is too simple. In the better business version, the deal ate the chain only by exposing how little slack the chain had left. That phrasing keeps both truths alive. The promotion mattered, and the promotion alone is too small to carry the whole bankruptcy. It made the deeper stress visible. It turned leases, ownership pressure, traffic weakness, and restaurant closings into one image people could repeat. That is why the title works, and also why the title is not the whole story. The thumbnail promise is paid off because the fun offer leads to the closing image, but the explanation does not stop at the meme. Red Lobster's bankruptcy is a reminder that recognizable brands can die in public while the causes are already buried in the operating model. The next corporate graveyard case has the same warning. When the public can finally name the problem, the company may have been living with it for years. Watch for that pattern in every familiar chain that suddenly looks fragile.